Record to this. Hey, thanks very much for joining us today. I am very excited to have on the show Jay Schwedelson. Now, Jay, for those of you in the marketing world, will absolutely know who he is. He's a renowned marketing expert. He is the host of the number one marketing podcast called Do This, Not That. He's also the founder of subjectline.com, and he runs the Guru Media Hub. Take it from me, he is probably one of the neatest guys in marketing that you will ever meet or hear from. So as I was talking about Jay to my wife and said, yeah, I'm going to bring him onto the show today, she said, yeah, but Doug, this is a personal finance show and, he's a great marketer. Yippee. Why would you possibly want to do that? So I told her the story about a client who had called us and told us that he had won the South African lottery and he needed us to send him his account information so they could wire the money to him. And I said, I don't think you're South African. He goes, no, I know. That's what's so amazing. I just won. I said, well, how do you know you won? He said, Doug, they sent me an email. And I realized that at Profile Investments, we spend a huge amount of time and effort to try and give people quality material. We try to let them know what they should read. We give them all sorts of information about investing in the United States from Israel. And then this guy gets an email from a Russian hacker, obviously, asking him for his banking information. And he's about to give it to them until we stopped him. And so, Jay, you are training people in how to get their message out. But how can normal people who are just dealing with their money or their investments or their health or whatever it is, how do they unmask these deceptive marketing practices and distinguish between the good guys like me and, the not good guys?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on the show. Big fan of what you're doing. And here's the reality of it. Spam works. It does. I mean, it's a math game. They're sending out these bad guys are sending out millions, if not billions, of emails. And invariably, you're going to run into people that get confused. And that's why they send them out, because people do get confused. And the thing that I think when you're talking about marketing in general, whatever business it is that you're trying to market, people overthink it. People are basically kind of simple. They don't understand a lot. I'm not trying to be rude about people, but in general, we don't. And when you try to explain the basics to people and you talk in a very simple way, that's actually what gets the engagement that people want to react to. It's not this like advanced newsletter that's 1,000 words you send out. It's breaking things down into the basics and at the very basic level, telling somebody, hey, the spam that goes out there is, hey, you won money. Well, that's very basic. Great. That's a win. Or, hey, your account has been compromised. Click here because you're in trouble. It appeals to two very basic things in life. Your greed, money, or trouble, which you want to avoid those problems. And it's the same thing with your marketing. If you can appeal to kind of the basic needs that people have and interests that they have, that is what resonates the most.
Yeah. So the problem with that is because I'm like a legitimate business and a legitimate financial planner, I can't do that, right? I wanted to shout from the rooftops, fear and greed, and then get people to
All right.
come and sign up for my newsletter. But I'm not going to do that because that's to me seems wrong. But I feel like they're getting pulled away by these immoral, thieves.
Well, in general, educating your clients, especially in financial services, right? Financial services, I would put in kind of that and healthcare kind of in the same bucket. You really do want to have an ongoing content stream about what people should be aware of that's not true. These are things that you should never interact with, right? Because you'd be amazed. You think everybody knows this, but they don't. And just having a constant stream of content saying you will never get, an email from the IRS if you're in the United States that tells you to do something. If you ever get an email from your bank account that says, hey, go here and change your password, never doing it. Putting out content with these never do's consistently, not just once, but like at least once a quarter, is a fantastic piece of content to send out if you're in these kind of regulated industries where people try to take advantage of them. And you always want to remind the people, and you're never being redundant by sharing that information. One of the biggest mistake that business owners make or that marketers make is they think that, well, I've sent that out, I can't send it again. I sound repetitive. I sound like I have nothing else to say, but it's not true. Nobody's remembering Nobody actually read it the first time. And you need to establish yourself as a reliable source of information on that topic. So I think it would be a priority if it was me and I had a financial services company.
So let's say, and again, I don't mean to use this
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
coaching session for me, but I really think that by people listening to this, they're going to see hopefully the
yeah,
difference between legitimate financial companies and frauds. The type of stuff that I teach about are things like how to do asset allocation in your brokerage account to plan for retirement. It's just not
yeah.
that, it's not that sexy, right? It's not as sexy as never click on the link from your bank because they're going to steal all your money, right? It's planning, and it's how to choose an exchange traded fund versus a money manager. I try to teach about these things, even in my 2025 guide to surviving retirement in Israel. I have a whole chapter on cybercrime, but some people skim it, and that's the most they're going to get out of it. I don't know how to let people know what's really important, which what I think is important, without and at the same time uh, not being the guy who's going to frighten them.
Well, I think that, I would imagine that in your business, while you stay in the lane and your business is very focused on like, this cross-border stuff and all whatever, people still come to you with questions about general financial services stuff. They're like, oh, that guy Doug Smart, he probably knows about this. Let me ask him this, even though it's not, maybe not even in your wheelhouse, right? And you being in financial services, regardless of what anybody's lane is, being that reliable source that people can trust, I think is critical. So creating content streams that are not just about your lane is really, really important because in that person's brain that you're communicating to when you do promote your service or whatever, they're going to view you as this person. It's not about you being known just for that thing. It's you being a reliable source of information. Here's what you're never going to do. No matter what you do, you're still going to have people that you're marketing to that are not, they're not clueless, but they're getting fooled. They are because things are getting more and more sophisticated. We're getting more and more nervous. AI is having an impact in terms of the personalization that is able to be sent to somebody. It feels so real and so to me specifically and personalized that there's going to be more cyber theft and more of this stuff. So this constant stream of content saying, "Hey, this is the garbage that's out there." And one of the best types of content that you can send out is literally starting your subject line with the numbers 101. The 101 on, financial services theft or whatever, the 101 on asset allocation, the 101 on whatever. And the reason that is when you say 101, it instantly in your mind is, oh, this is the basics that I need to know. And no matter what anybody will tell you, they're not nobody like if you go out to dinner with somebody talking about financial stuff, everybody kind of pretends that they know more than they do. Right? I'm sure it didn't forget it. They probably try to like impress you. Oh, I know this. And nobody knows what they're talking about, but nobody wants to say they don't know what they're talking about. So when you send out these emails or you do social posts that say 101, what you're doing is you're saying, listen, I know you don't know what you're talking about. I won't tell anybody. Here's the information
It's just
you
between us.
need to know right on the thing. And it lets them be comfortable interacting with your content. So stuff like that really can help.
One of the things you said, I'm also wary because you see this happening is the problem of bait and switch, right? In other words, a lot of one of the things I talk about a lot are like tax issues and writing your will and setting up a trust. But I'm not an accountant and I'm not a lawyer. I don't set up trusts. I deal only on the investment side of all that. So I sometimes, and the fact is, people will call my office and say, "Hey, Doug, I heard you talking about wills. Can you write the will for me?" And I go, "No, I can handle the money." And I get the sense that they feel like, oh, well, you're a middle-aged Jewish guy. You should be a lawyer and an accountant and a money. You should do everything. And it's just, I mean, obviously it all kind of interacts with each other because I deal with all these other professionals. But I don't want to like you're saying, well, talk about things that are
Yeah.
in parallel lanes to mine, which I do, but I'm just afraid that that gives people the wrong impression.
And I think if you are transparent, like I would love if I got a newsletter like from you that said, it literally was called "I'm not a lawyer, but," right? I'm not a lawyer, but, and then here are 5 things. This is the resource I go to. This is what I read. This is what I've learned, and say, and I'm not a lawyer, but, and you're very transparent about that. And people, listen, I love emails like Morning Brew or the Daily Skim or whatever, these digest emails that I get that they've done the work for me on these different topics that I could then say, because I don't have the time to go and research everything, whatever. And it's similar for you. You may not think that you are super deep on, whatever legal matter, but I guarantee you, you're probably 95% more knowledgeable on the topic than everybody else. And you've already done the legwork and just sharing that content, but being very upfront about the fact that, hey, listen, I'm not a lawyer, but whatever. That's super, super valuable to people.
One of the things you often talk about is the concept of frequency. And you talk about the importance of, or let's say like this, it's not a problem, you'll tell people,
Yeah.
to
Right.
send information frequently. And then on the other side, like you stand out in this field because other people say, what do you mean you're going to send more than your monthly newsletter?
Right.
And
Right.
we're posting on social, like we have information going out daily on different
Yeah.
channels. And I wonder if that feels to people, and maybe it should feel to them, because I get spams from bad guys. If they're going to say, "Oh, well, Profile Investments, listen, if they're sending me so much stuff, it must be that there must be something off base with them."
Okay, so let's just play that out. The people that think that, you don't want to work with them anyway. They don't know, they're annoying. They don't know what they're talking about. But the majority of people, here's what's going to happen. Let's say I'm on your list, but I live here in South Florida, and now after 3 years of being on your list, I get your stuff all the time. You've never heard from me. I decide I'm going to move to Israel. Okay, and I got these investments, and I say, oh, wait a minute. I've been getting this stuff from Doug for years, and at that moment, right, I need your help because that's what you specialize in, this kind of cross-border investment stuff. And that's the way attribution works now. It's this not where it's transactional, where, oh, I'm running a search ad, somebody clicks on it, I get a client. Okay. Or I send out this one email, they click on it, I get a client. That's not the way the world is anymore. It's surround sound. It is this constant being out there, social media, email, podcasting, YouTube, whatever. And then in the moment that the person has the need, when they say, okay, who are the two or three companies or people I could reach out to? You're in their brain because they see you all the time. And that is the value of frequency. Now, listen, you can't send out complete garbage. If you're sending out garbage, frequency is really bad, but frequency and relevancy are married. If you're sending out relevant stuff, you could send me something every single day. You could post 5 times a day, and I want to consume it. So frequency and relevancy are tied together. But here's what I fundamentally believe. You doing less, sending out less, posting less is not going to get you more business. It's bad math. You're not there in the moment that you need to be there. So I think attribution as it relates to communicating your message about your business is surround sound. It's not this transactional, I did this, I got that client. And who
Got it.
cares? Who cares if somebody unsubscribes? Seriously, who cares if somebody says that's the biggest mistake business owners make in any sector and marketers make, that they react to the loudest voice in the room. You send out another email instead of once a month, now you're going 3 times a month, and you got an email in, and the email says, "This is ridiculous. You guys hit me up all the time. You're driving me crazy. You're so annoying. You're a spammer. I hate your company. I will never work with you." And what do we all do? We take that email like, "Oh my God, we must be sending out too much.
Uh-huh.
We are going, well, this is terrible." No, that person is having a bad day. Okay, they probably wrote that email to 7 different people. They were never a good prospect for you. You should send them a thank you letter and say, "Thank you. I never want to work with you anyway because I promise you they wouldn't be happy with your service." Okay, so don't get unsubscribes are not something you should change your tactics on. Okay, that's not a good way to operate.
Now let's look at that same question from the side of the consumer.
Yeah,
Because again, I really want to make sure that we're giving value to the listeners in terms of this is great
yeah,
what you're telling me. Thank you. And I will continue to create a lot of content and send it out. I like creating
good.
content. I like teaching. I often joke with people, I started in the business well over 30 years ago. I was partners at the time with my mother. My mother was a vice president at Dean Witter.
Nice.
And before that, she had been a teacher. So everything I learned about Wall Street, I learned from my mom. And by the way, my grandmother, who was one of the first
Wow,
women to be licensed as a stockbroker in America. So I got
that's
like
amazing.
generations of women financiers in the family.
I
But my
love that.
mom taught me about teaching people. She said, so I like doing that. So I like creating the content. But I want to look at it from the side of the client or the potential client who gets on our list because
Yeah,
he sees I write something in Jerusalem Post, what somehow he gets on the list. I don't even know.
Right.
What is that? If you were that person, right? Let's say you were on my list and you got, a bunch of emails a month. You
Yeah.
say, listen, I'm just not interested at the moment. How are you going to relate to that company if it just seems wrong? And what can you do to protect yourself from a smart and very suave bad guy who's doing the same thing but just trying to steal your money?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's some basics. Number one, never open an attachment from anybody that you don't know personally. I mean, ever. Um, Basically, no government institution's ever going to email you and ask you to do something. So if you get an email that looks like it's from the government, ain't going to happen. The same could be said for your financial institutions. Okay. If you get any email from your bank that says, we need you to do X, don't click on any link. Don't do what they ask you. What you do is you do not call the phone number that is in that email. You also don't call the phone number that you Google. Don't Google and say, what's the phone number for Citibank, and call that number, because the bad guys are also playing the search engine game, right? And the numbers that you see that come up on Google are not the real numbers. The only number you call is what's on the back of your debit card or your credit card, the number that you can hold, something physical that has that number. And then you call them up and you say, hey, did you just send me this email? Do I need to change my password? Is something going on? And only in that moment will you know. And I would say 99 times out of 100, not even 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, no, that wasn't real. Okay. And never believe anything that asks you to change anything. Never log into something, change your password, give any type of important information. Just pick up your phone, call the known number, and investigate it for yourself. That's the safest move.
Got it. And you should see the movie Beekeeper, right? Because there's a
I
case
love
of some.
Beekeeper's a great movie. And along the same lines, don't reply to the email. Okay, because if you reply to the email, what you're doing then is you're telling that sender, the bad guy sender, if you reply to it and say, hey, is this true? Is this fake or whatever? Don't even reply unsubscribe. Okay. Don't say take me off this list.
So how do you get off?
Because when
How do you make it so you don't see that email anymore?
you can block it, you can add it to your block list, but you don't want to reply to it and say take me off the list, because what you're doing when you reply is you're saying hi spam guy girl whatever. Now this is an active email address. Good job, you found a human that checks this email account, right? You're telling them that that's an active address by unsubscribing, because they're not going to unsubscribe you. They're just going to add you to a list of known people that read email at that email address, right? So never reply to a text, never reply to an email. Don't do it. Just block them all.
That's I think that sounds like a critical advice. I'll tell you on the other side, we get sometimes our clients' emails get hacked. So
Yeah,
we'll get an email from a client says, "Hey Doug, I'm traveling with my
yeah,
brother in New Jersey. Could you?" And I can't call because whatever, my cell phone got fell in the toilet. Can you wire $50,000 to him and he'll give it to me? And so we spend a lot of time just, well, I hope all the
yeah,
financial firms spend a lot of time learning how to identify things like this, but we don't even reply because obviously if we reply to that email and say, hey, call us first. So now the spammer is aware or the hacker is aware there's a problem. So we have to try and track down the client and reach them in a different way to figure out what to do. So let me ask one more question, then we'll wrap it up.
yeah.
What do you think in terms of just the subject lines that people will see that they should see as a real red flag that it's, watch out for this, as opposed to when Doug Goldstein sends them, a useful email with a good subject line that's meant to catch their attention? Like, how can they distinguish between good stuff and bad stuff?
Well, first off, the biggest scam subject lines are things that start with the fake RE or the fake FW, right? So you get an email and the subject line starts with RE, which usually stands for regarding or reply, and then it says colon, whatever, right? It'll say RE colon about your latest bank transaction. And then you'll look at it and it'll be from, John Smith. You're like, do I know John Smith? No, I don't think I do. But because it says fake RE in the subject line, you're like, I must be in an email string with them. So you open it up. You should, anything that has an RE, the fake reply thing in the subject line, and it comes from a sender that you don't know. you should not, you should delete it immediately. Anything that comes from like a financial institution, like a Citibank or Chase or whatever, and it has the RE in the subject line, 100% is fake. They won't do that. It doesn't work that way, right? So that's the easiest one to flag. The same thing with FW at the start of your subject line, total mess and garbage. And the other thing, when you open up an email message, there's two pieces to the from address that you get. There's the actual from address, and then there's the alias, the friendly from. So when you get an email from Nike in your inbox, it says Nike. When you open it up, the email address is nike@nike.com or whatever it is. The email address itself is the biggest tell, right? If you open it up and you look at the actual email address it comes from, not the alias or friendly from, you'll see that when you get an email from Citibank and it's fake, it will not actually be coming from Citibank. So if you look at that email address, that'll be a really good way to know, is this a piece of garbage?
And that email address just appears in the from line, or do you have to float your mouse over it or do something to actually see it?
Yeah, it depends on which system you're using, but basically you have to open up the message. It won't appear just in the inbox. You open up the message, and at the top, if you just double click on the email address itself, you'll see the full email address. And if the email is not from whatever institution or company that you're dealing with, if it's not from them, you'll be able to tell very easily.
Great. It sounds like fantastic advice. I really hope that listeners today got as much out of this as I did, because I think it's so important to realize that, I mean, the way business is done is through email or LinkedIn or email, because that's what we're talking about today. And
Yeah,
and that's normal, right? That's okay. So you can't be afraid of everything. You just have to
right.
make yourself a little bit smarter, so you know what's good and what's bad, and then obviously accept the stuff from the good guys and get rid of the stuff from the bad guys.
Agreed.
Jay, I know that you do a lot to help people out in the marketing world. Could you just tell us in the last few seconds, what's the best way for people to learn a lot more from you than what they just got in the past 20 minutes?
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, I do have a podcast called Do This, Not That for Marketers. We put out 10-minute episodes a bunch of times a week. So if you want to check that out, that would be amazing. You could also just go to my jschwedelson.com and you could find out more about me. We can connect there. And I love connecting on LinkedIn. I share a lot of horrible memes on LinkedIn. So would love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn and just appreciate you having me on.
Fantastic. Jay Schwedelson, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.